Good morning. Welcome to City Center Church. It's already been an amazing time in the presence of God, hasn't it? How many of you know how far we are into this seek? Early on in the year, God got us directed towards seeking Him, and we were going to do it for 120 days, and I was like, I'm going to look it up because it feels like we've been in this for a while. I was like, we've been going after it. I'm in part 8 of a series. I thought this was going to be a long time. And we are coming up to week 7. We're not even at the halfway point yet. That's exciting. That means there's a lot of time for some of you to join in some of the things we're doing. And for those of you that started really strong and you've been like, you can jump back in. Come on. So I'm excited. I'm like, we have another 7 weeks and a few days. We're almost at the 60-day point, which is halfway. We're ending on May 19th. God told us to seek, and we're seeking until God sends the rain. That kind of thing. And so that's what we'll be going after. We've had prayer times this Friday, worship. Come seek. You're going to hear this service, and it's going to encourage you to come worship on Friday. I'm going to forego my regular review. Usually I talk a little bit about what happened last week. Who remembers anything about last week? Really what the summary of that was, a couple things, is prayer is not a button to be pushed, it's a relationship to be pursued. Carrie Newhoff said that, and I stole it because I tried to put it in a better, cooler way, and I couldn't. And then we learned that Elijah prayed earnestly, and when we looked at that, that was proseuchomai and prosuche, which means pray. And so whenever they repeated something, it was because they wanted to underline it, they wanted to emphasize it, they wanted to bold it. And so at the end I said, church, God is saying it's time to pray. And so people were making songs better than I tried to do last week. Watch me worship and watch me pray. There we go, so if you know that song. Watch me worship and watch me pray, and then actions and stuff. So we've gotten a couple slogans from this series about doing the Gertie. And now we have the pray. So it's been an amazing time. So I'm just going to jump right into it for the sake of time here. Who here has facial recognition on their phone? Does anyone have facial recognition and use facial recognition? Oh, you brave souls. Do you know the government knows everything about you now? Listen, I'm going to break it to those who say, well, who uses fingerprints? Anyone fingerprint for their? Who uses passcodes? Who has you're in the BlackBerry stage, you have no passwords, it just flips open and there it is, right? But I want to let you know, for those, I know some people, they're like, I'm not using facial recognition, the government's not going to find out about me, and I turned Siri off and all that. I hate to break it to you, but if you have a phone, period, no matter what you do to it, they can find you. If you use a credit card or have a bank account and you use it, they can find you. They can do things. So no matter, you'd have to go completely off grid, solar powered everything to get away from that. And so Siri isn't the one that's going to be the reason why somebody finds you and does stuff to you. Who is Siri? Does everybody know who Siri is? Somebody has something else. That's who always talks to me during the service when I lift my hands and something pops up on my watch. That's Siri. But we have facial recognition. We have fingerprints. Do you know the lock to our sound booth right now is fingerprint? Isn't that crazy? Technology is advanced. I mean, I didn't even have internet growing up. I know I aged myself, but we didn't even have internet. And so fingerprint ID was used quite frequently. That was revolutionary, and they probably still use it today. I've never been arrested. Anyone been arrested? Don't put up your hand. Some of you are like, whoa. But from movies, you go in, and what do? They put the ink on you, and you put your fingerprints down. And then your fingerprints go in a database, and what they're trying to do is future, if ever you're at a crime and you leave your fingerprints, right, they can ID you. Smart, right? And so they use that, but you know what I've never seen? Hasn't many of you heard an alert come across the TV or seen an alert come across the TV, or you see these things and they're trying to find a criminal, right? And they're they'll put posters up or they'll flash something across the screen. You know what I've never seen when they're trying to find a criminal and get you to help find them? You know what's never flashed across my screen, has never been put up on a poster, even though we use it a lot to ID? I've never seen a fingerprint be on one of those posters. Or flash across the screen. If you've seen this fingerprint, call us. right? Like posters of the, if you see this, if let us know, high alert, looking for a person with this fingerprint, has a groove in their thumb like come on. Right? And so that doesn't flash across the screen, even though they've used it to ID. What flashes across the screen when they're trying to find someone or when they're trying to get you to recognize someone or point someone out? What flashes across the screen? What do they put posters up of? Face. You're missing your dog, you're missing your cat, you don't put a picture of their paw. Be like, if you see this paw, if you see this claw, our cat, we have a cat. Do you guys know we have a cat? You probably don't, because I really don't like to talk about it much. That was one of those soft moments for children in my house that I gave into it. But our cat gets long claws, and it's right now he needs some snippy snips, because everything, even when you pet him, he's just like, anyways. You don't identify them by your claws or their paws. You would put a picture up of their face. Why is that important? I'm going to get right into it. You can write this down. You can take a picture. This is one of the main things I'm saying today. You can identify a person by their fingerprints, but you recognize a person by their face. You can tell something about someone when you see their fingerprints or their handiwork on something, but that doesn't necessarily mean you recognize them. So that's why they put faces up when you try to find someone, not fingerprints. Because you actually recognize someone by their fingerprints. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says this, if my people, anybody here who would consider themselves a part of God's people? Anybody a part of God's people today? You're his tribe. Amen. It says, if my people who are called by my name, anyone called by God's name this morning? Anyone online called by God's name? Amen. I believe everyone is called by the name of God. You may not know it, but you are. Front row's real loud. The kids are loud this morning. It's good. It says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves. All those other ones are easier. You know, I'm called by God. I'm God's people. I got to humble myself. What? Come on, how many of you know we got to walk in humility? That amen was way quieter, but that's okay. That's not what we're sitting on today. It says, will humble themselves and pray, watch this, and seek my fingerprints. And seek my handiwork. And seek my power. And seek what I can do. No, what does it say? Seek my face. Seek my face. See, this is coming off of Solomon just dedicating the new temple that he built, that David wanted to build for years, and God said, no, you have too much blood on your hands, you've been fighting too much battles, it's going to go to your son. They've made it to amazing specifications. Solomon offers up this prayer of dedication for the temple that they built, where the presence of God's going to be, worship's going to be similar to how we would do church today. And he offers it up, and the fire of God comes and consumes their sacrifice. And then it says, the glory of the Lord fills the place where like the priests and the people couldn't even stand. Come on, how many of you like to see that happening in church today? We had a glimpse of it this morning where you just go, man, God is here. And so out of this interaction, God starts speaking. He says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land. Humble themselves and seek my, look at your neighbor and say, I like your face. Your fingerprints, I don't know about. See, we read that and we think that's cool, but what happens in the church is that we do something we wouldn't ever do in real life, is we start almost interchangeably mixing the ideas of God's fingerprints or God's hand and God's face and God's person, if we're being honest. And in fact, we even sing about it in different ways. And again, I don't want to get into semantics of this, but even the song, I think it's Waymaker, Miracle Worker, Promise Keeper, Light in the Darkness, that is who you are. I would question whether that is who he is, and some of that actually being what he does. But we intermingle it and say, we start equating what God does, his fingerprints on something, his hand, with who he is, his face, and his heart. And if we're not careful, we start worshiping God not for his face, who he is, but we start worshiping for his fingerprints or his hand or what he can do for us. Come on, am I in the right place today? And we sing about it almost interchangeably, and we do something in church and with God what we would never do in real life. I'm going to ask my wife to come up here today. Come on, let's give her a hand. I apologize for my breath right now, babe. I'm fasting right now, which doesn't help. So she's got gum here. Give me some. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so what we're going to do is, let me have like another breaking news. Breaking news. Guess what? Let me tell you something that is so profound it's going to change your life. You ready for this? There is a difference between your hand and your face. What? Shocking, I know. Right? There are things you're going to do with your hand that means something different than when you do with your face. So I'm going to high five my wife. I'm just going to high five. There's nothing going on here. We did not practice this. We were not in our room last night. Hey, babe, this is what we're going to do. No, I told her this morning. She was like, oh, no. So let's high five, right? Right? That was easy. High five. That's what you do. If I said high five, you go to do your hand, something like that. That's pretty normal. It would seem a little weirder if we started a trend of high-fiving with our faces. So let's high-five with our face. Come on, Murray. Come on, Murray. Come on, Murray. Let's high-five with our faces. Let's give him a hand. Come on. Yeah, come on. Get the camera over here. We got to get it. Here we go. High-five with our face. There we go. All right. Right? I mean, you kind of go like this, but if everyone is walking around. Right? You kind of go, okay, that's a little weird. Like hands and faces do different things, right? And so we have that. My wife loves it when I hold her face. She loves it so much when I do this. All she thinks of is all the germs on my hand, which is probably true. I've been playing the piano. Every hand I shook is going on her face right now. Okay, that's all I'll do, right? See, she always does, yeah, and like all those germs, right? And so even a hand to a face, it can be a gentle caress, but it's kind of, like that. It's just a hand to a face. But we shake hands. What if we started shaking faces? Huh? Right? Now, watch. I can even kiss her hand. Ooh, it made a smacker sound in the speakers. Actually, that's what our kids get really grossed out on. Like when they were younger, they're like, kiss more. Now they're like, we can hear your kisses. Stop. Right? And everyone giggles and goes, oh, that's nice. You can kiss someone's hand. Maybe. But if I'm going to kiss her face or her lips, I'll do your face first. And then? Right. It's more intimate, it's more close. There's something different about face-to-face encounters than hand-to-hand holding and even walking. Is there not? Yeah. All right, thank you. Let's give her a hand. Let's give her a face. Oh. Can you imagine, this is part, there's just some things that hands should do that faces shouldn't, and faces do that hands don't. Right? So hand being symbolic of what you do. You work with your hands. It's what you produce. Your fingerprints are on something. That idea of fingerprints being something on something. Your face being symbolic of who you are. Let me help you out. I didn't marry my wife because of her hands. You're saying that as a, but that wasn't the qualifying thing. She definitely didn't marry me because of my hairy knuckles. Right? That wasn't what I went to and went. It was more about her face. Come on. Watch. In fact, people that are marrying others for things other than face and maybe some features, but things like hands or I wasn't babe, until I see your fingerprints, I'm not going to know. Right? That just doesn't happen. And so anyone who actually gets a fixation with something like hands, and they're going after somebody because of something like hands, we say that's actually a problem. And we call that a fetish. Come on. When someone's like, well, I really like hands, and it's like overboard. Let me say, like the idea of fixation. I think I have it here. No, fetish. An activity or object that someone is interested in to an extreme degree and gives an unreasonable amount of time and attention and thought to. See, we see this in the natural, and if someone's like enamored with hands or like way out there in something, we go, man, this isn't great, this isn't healthy, you shouldn't be liking me for my toenails, it should be something a little bit more than that. And so we see that in the natural, we call it a fetish, but that happens in the church and the spiritual, and we just call it normal. Come on. We get overly fixated on what the hand of God can do. And we can identify what God is doing because his fingerprints are on something. Come on. His fingerprints are on something. His hand is doing something. There's power. There's signs and wonders. But that doesn't mean that you actually recognize the face of God. Here, can I make a radical statement? I'm already into it today. But here's my radical statement. The church needs to stop being fixated on the hand of God and start being frenzied by the face of God. I'm going to roll that back. Here we go. And I'm going to say that again. I got dizzy. Whew. Help me, Jesus. That was terrible. The church needs to stop being fixated on the hand of God and start being frenzied by the face of God. I'll explain definition frenzy in a bit. Because I said it, just because you can identify someone's handiwork, what they can do, someone's fingerprints on something, doesn't mean you actually know who they are. It doesn't mean you actually can recognize them. Is everyone done with that statement? Give you a few minutes because we're going to put some pictures up. How many of us is this really awkward, the quiet? Usually for me it is, but everyone good with that statement now? Okay, so to prove this point, we're going to put a picture up on the screen here. Hopefully it'll come up on the live stream. Throw that first one up there. All right. Who has seen this person before? Come on, let's yell out, who is that? Charlie Brown. You know about Snoopy? Anyone heard of Snoopy? Anyone heard of the Peanuts, characters? Who's the one, what's the name of the girl that would always pull the football up on Snoopy when he's about to go kick the ball? Lucy. And then there was Pigpen with his dirty blanket. Peppermint Patty, right? Charlie Brown, you say, hey, I can ID that. Okay, let's put the next one up. Oh. Some of the older ones are like, well, no, everybody should, these are the cartoons I grew up with. Who knows that? Who's that? Let's yell it out. 1, 2, 3. Tom and Jerry. Right? Who remembers Tom and Jerry? I don't know I was trying to think if they're Looney Tunes. I don't think they're Looney Tunes. Yeah, they were. Were they? Whoa, Liz goes way back. She's like, they were. Then they split up. They had a breaking away. There was a fight. They separated and they went, we're not going to get with Sylvester, the cat. There's some... Anyways, no, I don't know what happened. But then you have that. So we go Tom and Jerry. All right, let's throw this next one up. Okay, on the count of 3, name this. 1, 2, 3. Oh, no, cool. I knew someone in the crowd was going to know it. Was that Murray? Was that you? That's well done. Okay. Put the next one up. Next one. Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. What's happening? Everyone knew that first one and second one, but no one knows the third one. Okay, put the one up before this, the guy before this. Murray had it. See, we put up a picture of Charlie Brown, and everyone could identify Charlie Brown. Right, that was easy. Charlie Brown, we know it. We've seen Charlie Brown. But that picture right here, Murray knows. Tell us, Murray, who is that? He's the creator of Charlie Brown. Charles Schulz. See, you guys could all identify Charlie Brown, but you didn't recognize Charles Schulz. See, you can identify the handiwork and the fingerprints of somebody, but that doesn't mean you recognize the author of it. Next one. Of course, you could probably catch on who this was. This is Joseph Barbera, one of the 2 authors and writers of Tom and Jerry. See, we watched Tom and Jerry, and we could identify Tom and Jerry, but we knew nothing of the creator of Tom and Jerry. In the fact we could walk by them in the street and not even know they passed by. Just because you recognize or you can identify the handiwork of God, the power of God, doesn't actually mean you know the author of it or the creator and you can recognize God. Come on. And in the church, we've sometimes, a lot of times, got confused and made those the same thing. In fact, again, I preached on this at an MNC conference along this same idea, and God just brought it back in my heart. But we have conferences about everything to do with the fingerprints, the hand of God, the working of God, the signs and wonders of God. And listen, I am all for that. I'm going to give a quote later on. I'm just going to say it now because it's dropped in here. When you seek the face of God, you get the hand of God. But if you seek the hand of God, you'll miss the face of God. So we have conferences, and if we're being honest, it's all centered around the fingerprints and the handiwork and the hand of God. But there's far less conferences around seeking for the face of God, the heart of God, the presence of God, and the person of God. Because that's not as exciting. But when you misplace your attention and focus on hands, when you overfixate on it, when it's out of abnormal, we call it a fetish in the world, and somehow in the church we call it normal. When it shouldn't be. When it shouldn't be church. See, we all could identify what Charles Schultz and Jason Barbera could produce. But that doesn't mean we actually recognize them. Murray got one person out of all of us on one of them, right? Well done, Murray. You must seek the face of God a lot, that's why. And so we don't see this as a problem in the church, but the difficulty with that being hands, fingerprints, signs and wonders, power of God, we applaud it, we encourage it. Matthew said this, quoting Jesus. You ready? Matthew 16, verse 4, he says this, "A wicked and adulterous generation seeks after signs." Seeks after signs. We're seeking God right now. We're saying it's going to rain, it's going to do this. Jesus said, but a wicked and adulterous generation seeks after signs. Seeks after recognizing what the hand can do. They seek after that. And he says, no sign shall be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. That's in reference to Jonah being in the belly of the whale for 3 days, coming out, which was a foreshadowing to Jesus being 3 days in the earth and coming out of hell. And so he's saying, that's when you're going to get the next sign. But Matthew tells us, if you just seek signs, if you just go over hands, Jesus calls them wicked and adulterous generation. It's quiet because everyone's like, well, what do we do? I don't know, right? I'll get to it. And then this is another reason. If we use signs and wonders or the fingerprints or the hand of God solely as a marker of identifying God, Mark tells us this. He goes, in Mark 13, 21 to 22, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ. Look, here's Christ. This is God. This is what's happening. Are you going to this? Everything's happening. It's amazing. All these things are happening. This must be Christ. Or look, he is there. It says, do not believe it. Watch. For false Christs, look at somebody and say, false Christs. And false prophets, look at somebody else and say, false prophets, will rise, watch this, and show signs and wonders to deceive, even, if possible, even the elect. That verse is crazy. That verse is crazy. So if we're looking to the hand of God, the fingerprints of, or things like signs and wonders saying that is the mark of God, Mark says here, guess what? There's going to be false Christs, false prophets rising up, and they're going to do signs and wonders. So if we're trying to identify or recognize God through that, you can be led astray. You can be led astray. And if you go, well, maybe that word means something else. No, that's the exact same words that it says that these signs shall follow those who believe. That's the same word signs there. So it's talking about the same kind of signs that we're supposed to do in the name of Jesus. But he's saying false prophets, false Christs are going to come out, and it's going to deceive even those who are elect, even those who are strong Christians. Because why? Because we're chasing the wrong thing. Come on, is anyone getting anything out of this? To quote Brad, is anyone getting anything out of this morning? See, if we don't recognize God, if we can just ID God, if we don't recognize God, it's going to be hard to tell the difference between what is false and true. If you don't recognize the authentic, it can become difficult to recognize the counterfeit. The church needs to stop being fixated on the power of God and start being frenzied by the presence of God. Here's what frenzied means: wildly excited or uncontrollable. We teach control everywhere, everything's control, but the one place that we should be a little out of control is in the presence of God. Come on. You're not convinced? David demonstrated this. It's one of my favorite accounts in Scripture. He's trying to usher in what was then the presence of God in the Ark of the Covenant, in a box, kind of the presence of God would come and dwell, and they were trying to take it from one place to another, and he had the great idea to pull it behind a cart with oxen, and there was 2 oxen, and they're going, one of the oxen got tired and knelt down, and the ark started to tumble with the presence of God, and a guy went to balance it, he touched it, and he died. How many of you, I've said this before, if you came into church with any kind of sin in your life, and if you knew if you walked in you might die if you didn't work it out, wouldn't that be crazy? These churches would be less full probably. Thank you, God, for sending your son Jesus. We just take stuff for granted. It's so cush for us. What do you mean there's no coffee left for me in church? Never mind. I can't get on that. They probably look at us and cry sometimes. Anyways. So he touches it, he dies, and David gets convicted like you see him do. And he goes, man, I messed this up. And so he leaves it there and it stays. I forget whose house it stayed at, and that house is getting blessed because the presence of God is there. And then David's like, we need to get this into our neck of the woods, right? And so then he reads up on how to do it, and so they do it with priests and different things. And then it says David, literally, I figured this out once, but I don't remember. Every 3 steps he took, he offered a sacrifice when he was trying to bring the presence of God the proper way to where he needed it. Every 3 steps, he offered a sacrifice, and it was thousands and thousands of sacrifices. And so then he comes in, and all of his kingly robes, all of his pride, all of what anybody else would have thought, all of his, this isn't the way. David wasn't looking at his disc profile to determine how he was going to dance. Does anyone know what a disc profile is? It's this is my personality. David wasn't considering, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, I'm this. We don't hear about David worrying about what kind of personality when he decided to dance. The 3 of us who are the rest are oh, that's just harsh. But it said he took off his kingly robes, his pride, his identity, everything about him. He didn't care what his neighbor was saying. He didn't care what happened. He's I'm going to dance. He danced so much for the Lord and looked so unashamed of it that his then wife looked at him and was embarrassed and said, David, you're the king. You can't do this. You want this. And I love this statement. He goes, I will be even more undignified than this. Translating to today, I will be even more frenzied than that. I don't think we're frenzied enough in church over the presence and face of God. I've seen people get a little frenzied over the hand of God. See, listen, I love what my wife can do. She's an amazing teacher. Fantastic teacher. You should come watch one of her band concerts. She does it fantastic. I'm always so proud of her when she does it. I'm amazing teacher, amazing worship leader. She gets compliments all the time. No one ever tells me anything good about when I'm worship leading. Okay, guys, I'm feeling a little low, all right? That was a passive-aggressive way to get compliments. Come on. But she's always so-and-so told me. I'm no one ever. I'm just old hat now. No one cares. No, I'm just kidding. I'm good, guys. I'm just bugging you. But they tell her, amazing worship leader, when she pulled out her flute on Friday, again, I went, the sound of heaven. So I love her handiwork. I love what she can do. But if our relationship is based on what she just does for other, if just does for me or does, it's not going to be real authentic. And we understand that in the natural, but somehow we miss that in the church or going after God. And so I can be like, you're the best teacher, babe. And you're like, oh, that's good. But if I'm like, babe, I can't just wait to get home and spend time with you. I love just being with you, seeing your face, everything about you. It just makes me so happy. I'm just so glad you're my wife, right? Everyone kind of gets uncomfortable because it's like, but that's, you can even see, even though she knows it means something different, what am I doing? I'm talking to her face. I'm seeking her face. I'm talking about who she is. God is love. God, you are such a loving God. God, you are a light in the darkness. You have no choice but to be light. God, you are true. You are just. You are faithful. Those aren't things, some of those, God just is. And we start saying, God, I just want to seek you for who you are in my life. Man, God, you are so amazing to be around. God, I just can't get enough of you. God, I'm so glad, right? And you start talking, even when I say it, you can just be like, man, God's getting lifted up. God, I want to know you. God, I want to know you. See, we should get wildly excited, not when we just see the hand of God or when we identify the fingerprints of God. We should get wildly excited when we know the heart of God and we see the face of God. It has always been the desire of God that the people of God would see the face of God and not just the hand of God. It has always been the desire of God that the people of God would seek the face of God, not just the hand of God. So I'm sharing this for because we've been in a season of seek. We're about halfway through. And God came in with a warning and said, church, make sure you're seeking the face. Not just what the hand can produce. Not just the fingerprints. You don't know someone by their fingerprints. You know them by their face. So what does it mean when we say we're seeking the face of God? I think some people are writing that down. I've wondered this, just as an aside. They talk about idolatry in the Bible a lot. Lots in the Old Covenant, we're like, we don't deal with that. But I often wonder if God sees our infatuation with some of the things of the fingerprints and hands of God almost as idols in our life. And because of His grace, He puts up with it. And His mercy, but what if there was a church that began to turn towards the face of God? Again, if you seek the face of God, the hand of God follows. When I seek the face of my wife and I seek relationship with her, guess what? I get what all her hand can do. But if I start with the hand, that doesn't guarantee intimacy. It doesn't guarantee that I know her. So you can have two people in a relationship functioning and doing all their handiwork of a relationship, but you can know that it's actually not functioning because there's actually no face-to-face encounters. Face-to-face encounters. Face-to-face encounters. So what does it mean when we say that seek the face of God? I'm wrapping up here. Exodus 33:7. Moses took his tent and pitched it outside the camp, far from the camp, and called it the tabernacle of meeting. And it came to pass that everyone who sought the Lord, everyone who what? Sought the Lord. They're seeking. They went out to the tabernacle meeting, which was outside the camp. So what happened here, just to give you quick context, Moses went up to Mount Sinai, spent 40 days up there, gets the 10 commandments and a bunch of things. He's on the top of the mountaintop experience. And then God's like, you got to get down there. Those people of yours are doing crazy stuff. And it was 40 days in, they're like, he's not coming back, he's dead, we have no one to lead us, no God, let's make an idol. Like, that's literally what they do, and they get all their jewelry and make a calf, and they start worshiping it. We're not like that, hey? We wouldn't have done that. No way, we would be so holy and different. So then he comes down, he's like, what is happening? And so he gets so angry, he breaks the 10 commandments, right? And so God's frustrated, and they're talking a little bit, and God literally says this, he's like, Moses, I'm done. He's like, you guys are going to go on to the promised land. I can't go with you, because if I go with you guys, I'm going to destroy everyone. That's literally what happens. He says, go, I'm done. I can't handle this. And Moses, as actually a type of Christ, as an intercessor, goes to God over and over and pleads on behalf of the people. And so Moses goes, I don't know what to do. So he takes his tent, puts it outside the city, and he creates a place to meet with God. And it says that the cloud would start descending, and it says, as it came to pass. I like that because it means he didn't just do it once. It was as he was doing it. He set that tent out there, and then he would go there frequently, consistently. He made the practice of it. He'd go out to meet with God, and it wasn't every time, but as it came to pass, when one of the times a cloud would descend, and then it started to happen more, and people would stand outside and acknowledge that God was there, and God would come meet him. Watch. And I love this because this is Moses. He's not saved, as we say. He's not Christ following yet. There's no Jesus. And so, but he gets to meet with God. In Exodus 33:11, it says this: so the Lord spoke to Moses face to face. Now we know a little bit later, he asked for God's glory, and God's like, I can't show you my face, like you're going to die if you see all of me. So I understand that it's not, all of God's glory. We see what happens when you get exposed to that. But it's intimate. He's saying it's face to face. Watch this. As a man speaks to his friend. Hi, Jake. How's it going today? You having a good day? You enjoying the service? Man, you did a great job on the drums. Thanks for coming and playing today. Right? What did we just do? Face to face, friends, talked. Listen to that dialogue. Sometimes we make it greater than it is. Just come to God. Moses was talking to him face to face as a person talks to their friend. Hey, what's up? How was your week? What's going on? Face to face as a person who talks to a friend, a man who speaks to his friend. And he would return to the camp. I like this. This is a whole other thing. But his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, did not depart from the tabernacle. If you want to know why Joshua was the next leader, if you want to know why Joshua went to the into the promised land with the giants and said, we can take it, it's because of this. Because he stayed in the tent with God's presence. So Moses would go into the tent. I like that it says Moses took his tent. He's like, I'm creating a space of mine to go meet with God. So Moses got talked to face. That word in the Hebrew is panim, P-A-N-I-M. You ready what it means? It means presence and person. It does not mean, obviously, hand, work, signs. It means presence and person. It means the part. Watch this. The part turned towards anyone. It's even implying that you could be going this way, and when I go like this, my face is turned towards Jake, right? So the first move is the part turns towards anyone. I am now face to face. So even if you feel like, man, I'm walking away from God, I haven't been doing it, all we have to do is turn, and we can start getting drawn into God. That's the first one. And then the second one says this: to turn oneself in the direction of. Then you look, and then you go, I'm turning myself. God, that we turn ourselves in your direction. God, that I turn myself in your direction today, this week, this season, from this moment on more than I ever have, so that I can see you face to face. Panim to panim. Moses and God were panim to panim. And they were talking as if best friends. And then Moses said this. He said to the Lord, see, you say to me, bring up this people. Maybe you said to God, you've asked me to do this, we're doing this. He goes, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found grace in my sight. Now therefore I pray, if I have found grace in your sight, show me now your way. Show me now your way, God, that I may know you, and that I may find grace in your sight. And then he goes on to intercede for the nation, and consider that this nation is your people. And then he said, this is God, because he's saying, I'm not going to go. And Moses is like, please, you have to. And he goes this, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. And then he said to him, Moses says this to God, if your presence does not go with us, do not bring us up from here. I understand that God can do a lot of things, and there's a lot in his handiwork and fingerprints, and it's amazing. But our heart needs to be, God, if your presence does not go with us, I don't want to go from here. If I can't recognize your face, if I'm not seeing you face to face, it's not even worth going from here. The heart cry of someone who wants to see God face to face is, God, if your presence does not go with me, I will not move from here. God, if your presence does not go with me, I will not move from here. God, if your presence does not go with me, don't send the rain. God, if your presence is not with me, I don't want to lead this church. God, if your presence is not with me, I don't want this calling. God, if your presence doesn't go with me, I can't do this job. I can't make this relationship work. I can't be the parent you want me to be. I can't pass my math class. I can't make this decision. God, if your presence doesn't go with me, I will not go from here. God, I won't go anywhere. I won't do anything unless you're with me. God, let me not go one day without seeing you face to face, without spending time in your presence. Worship team, come on up. I know we're tight on time, but we need some time of worship in his presence here as we close. Church, we're in a season of seeking. We are in a season of seeking. But listen, we are seeking not just to see the rain, we're seeking to see the bringer of the rain. We are seeking not just to see the signs and wonders and miracles, but we're seeking to see the giver of the signs and wonders and miracles. We're not seeking just to see the hands, but we're seeking to see God's heart. We're not just seeking to see the fingerprints, but we're seeking to see his face. Church, we need to be frenzied for the face of God, not just fixated on the hand of God. I don't want to be a part of a church that we can identify God. Oh yeah, God's there. God's definitely there. But we don't recognize him. And you only recognize someone by seeing their face and getting familiar with their face. And the way we get to know the face of God is we spend time in the presence of God. With no agenda but to just come and say, God, I'm here for you. Shout out to Wednesday mornings. That's what we do. It seems a little weird because there's not a lot going on, but it's mostly just, God, we're here for you. We're waiting on you. We just want to be with you.